Welcome, everybody. It's the healthiest day of the week. My name is Brad Miller. I get to be one of the hosts of this call, and we're running a little tight on time because we're going to cover a lot of nerdy, fun information. So for you fact lovers, we've got it for you tonight. So it's kind of hard to top the last couple of weeks of stories of victories in health. Let's see here. Let's see. I mean, it's hard to beat Allison. You know, she lost 150 pounds, got engaged, and I think she was hiking while she was doing it. That's a pretty cool story right there. So just a lot of cool things. So instead of doing stories to save time, I'm just going to take a photo of all of you guys. So give me a big smile because I know you guys all had awesome weeks. So there you go. Oh, you guys look great. All right. So we're into week 2 of just the series in July. We just encouraged everyone to set some goals because learning that there's different seasons and all of these things. Dan kind of did a really cool breakdown of what that looks like. Last week was kind of going over our plans. So for many of you guys that what we're doing here, not just our meal plans, but what we're doing here all together, like optimal health. What is this thing? So if you're new, you're probably fighting a little bit of that tendency, oh my gosh, wait, I thought I was dieting, but wait, they say I'm not, but I am, I'm losing weight, but I'm not, but I am, what am I doing here? And some of you guys are, residents, you guys have been here for a while, you know exactly what we're talking about, and we're diving in at deeper levels. So last week was a really cool topic. I enjoyed it. And this week we're going to dive a little bit more into understanding healthy lifestyle and healthy eating and kind of what all this means. So let me share my screen real quick and we can get started here today. We got a lot to cover that I'm really excited to cover here. So one sec. Alrighty. So last week, again, we covered, not dieting. We covered a few of our plans, all revolving around eating 6 times a day. And this was kind of the thing that we showed because this is kind of a 3-dimensional look at what we're doing here. We're not just eating healthy to lose, dieting to lose some weight. We're creating a healthy lifestyle. This also encompasses a lot of different things in our health, like healthy mind, sleep, exercise, relationships, stress levels. All of these things are going to come into play when we hit this going here. And it all is about fueling our body for a goal. So, there are so many things that have to do with our bodies, just so many different things. And I feel like knowledge is half the battle. So things that you didn't even know, took place. Did you guys know that it takes 10 minutes for your brain to know that your stomach's full? It literally takes 10 minutes for your stomach being full to tell your brain to stop eating. There's just simple things like that. There's things did you guys know that just our bodies don't know the difference 30% of the time between being thirsty and being hungry? There's just so many of these things that when we know this stuff, we can operate better. So we're going to go into this a little bit. And I thought we started out with one of my favorite sayings, or most not favorite sayings, is people know how to be healthy. They just need to do it. Well, I want to speak on that for a second because nothing really can be further than the truth. We can know that we want to be healthy, but to know what to actually do, there's a lot of knowledge in there. And maybe you guys do know a lot of that knowledge, but that is a big insult to my past self. I didn't know any of the stuff that I know now about being healthy. And hopefully a lot of the stuff we cover today will help you. So I'm going to try to break this down as simply as we can tonight. Dan and Susan are going to also share some really cool things about how our bodies work. But we started off with the basics of fueling 6 times a day. And I know some of you guys are probably thinking, or maybe at one point thought, why? Why do we need to eat 6 times a day? Who said so? Why is that important? And so I thought we'd go over a few of these reasons. And 2 of them, I'm a very visual learner. So these 2 things kind of are a good metaphor for why. So one is think about your body like a vehicle. It's, you wouldn't put watered down cruddy gas in your car because it's going to break down, especially I don't know if you guys' goals are my goal is to work with a high performance vehicle, for myself. You wouldn't put, low grade watered down fuel in there. It's just going to break the car down. So kind of thinking about the quality that you put in your body. But then there's another aspect because we're talking about eating 6 times a day, which you wouldn't fuel up your car 6 times a day. So that one doesn't exactly translate. So I'm going to take it over one more step for the other part of this to think about your fueling your body kind of like a fire. You wake up, you get it going, you get some newspapers maybe lit, you add some kenneling, when that's going, you're ready for the next one. And before you know it, you're adding little things to it. You got that fire blazing. That's your metabolism. So that's the same reason why you eat 6 times a day. you wouldn't just drop a big log on the fire right after you get the newspapers going. It would just squash the fire. You have to build up to that. So, just kind of understanding that your body's kind of like, the fuel you'll give it is like a vehicle. How you get your metabolism going and your body operating is like a fire. So that's one way to look at it. And then addition is thinking about the fuel you're giving your fire, your machine, your car, your vehicle, whichever it may be. It all translates back to your body, is the right fuel. A lot of us get caught up in calories in, calories out, but calories just tell you the amount of energy that you're consuming. So thinking about what goes into your body, and what's cool about this is you guys don't have to worry about this if you're on one of our plans. Like, the beautiful thing is it's already laid out for you. But basically it comes down to macronutrients, which are protein, carbs, and fats, and then vitamins and minerals. And so actually I was going to take a little segue for Dan to kind of come on here for a second and kind of explain why these pieces are so important to our body. Because we all know we can consume calories, but like, what grade fuel are we having, and why are these things so important? So Dan, did you want to speak to that for a second?
Yeah, sorry, I'm muted. Definitely. Well, and exactly, I think because we often, we've always, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, you're good. I just got to mute somebody else.
So would you say?
You can always, we always hear about calories now, different quality of calories and those kind of things. So obviously the macronutrients are where our calories come from. They're either coming from protein, they're coming from carbs, or they're coming from fat. And a good balance is really crucial in what our bodies are going to do, whether they're going to store energy, fat, or they're going to utilize the energy that you have and keep you lean and healthy. And then vitamins and minerals are crucial for a lot of metabolic processes. There's all the vitamins and minerals that play key roles in these cool chemical processes that happen in our body, whether we're breaking down food into energy or whether our organs are processing other things, or even to cell growth and building any cell in the body for any organ or any part of the body that needs the growth and recovery and regeneration of those cells. And so those vitamins and minerals play a crucial part in that. Was that what you're looking for, Brad?
Yeah, exactly, Dan. I mean, you say it so more eloquently than I do, but what basically is great is, like, we have the structure of eating 6 times a day. And I'm going to kind of go into why our body wants to eat that way, but also it's about giving our body what it wants, not just giving it, garbage fuel, because our body will run and process what we give it. And these are the main things that we want to run with. So if you're like me in the beginning, I would have been like, this is too much information. Just know that you're getting all of these things on a daily dose if you are on one of our plans. And that's beautiful. So you can start turning around the back of your foods and realize, like, oh my gosh, I am getting a full load of, all these vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbs, and fats, and kind of start to play around with what that percentage looks like. That's where I started at the very basic level. I want to jump off on a tangent for a little bit here, because this is the whole point of this. Is if you give your body what it needs, it'll start building what an ideal healthy body. So, this is just a quick little turn off as we talk about fueling the body and how it works. Guys, if I could give you guys one encouragement as we're getting through this and we're learning how to fuel our bodies and moving forward in our health and pushing ourselves to new heights, throw out your scale. It is seriously such a waste of time, because the scale just tells you how much you weigh. But if you're giving your body the proper macronutrients, getting exercise, and you're going to notice that you're going to be getting smaller, ideally, if you're starting the weight loss process. But the scale might not be changing here, because if you look here, you can see that 3 grapefruits take up the same size or take up a way different size, but weigh the same as like tangerines. So tangerines would be your equivalent to fat in the body. The grapefruit Tangerines would be your equivalent to muscle. Grapefruits would be your equivalent to fat. So you can see there's a difference there. So muscle versus fat, and giving yourself what your body needs to generate what the ideal setups are. So hold on a second here. I got to mute somebody else. There we go. So just a quick reminder on when you're giving yourself the right stuff, your body will build the right things. It'll get rid of fats, because you can't produce fat when you're fueling yourself correctly with the right amount of macronutrients, and it'll produce good amounts of your body. So pay attention to more about the scale. Really kind of throw out or pay attention to what your body's doing. Throw out the scale in a lot of different ways. I mean, you can check it if you want, You can't lose a good amount of size and not lose weight, but the scale can't tell you accurately what's going on in your body when you're fueling properly. So we've hit on 2 things so far: eating 6 times a day and fueling ourselves properly. And here's the reason for that. And here's the third thing I was going to talk about, and it's called insulin. When your body intakes sugar or food, and the sugar in the food, it produces insulin to break it down. And so what I'm showing you right now here on the screen is what insulin production looks like in your body in a maybe not so healthy way, when you're not eating correctly in your macronutrients, when you're having that sugar. Hold on a second, I got to mute a few more people. Got a lot of people on tonight. There we go. I think we're good now. So follow this line here with me. If you take in a lot of sugar, like say orange juice or something like a candy bar or a soft drink, your body is going to produce insulin to break that down to be used for fuel. The only problem is the more sugar you intake, you think it would last you longer, but that just means your body produces more insulin to break it all down faster. So if you aren't being active, like many of us that go to a sitting office job, your body doesn't have any energy to expand or explore or to use up. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied tonight. But basically, it'll start storing it because you're not using it for energy. And what also happens is when your insulin levels are low, I think you guys all have been or have felt that hangry feeling where you're really low with blood sugar and you're craving something you really can't be consoled. Like, this is kind of what that looks like. That's the highs and lows of insulin production. So basically, that's what it looks like when you're not eating the correct items, when you're not eating 6 times a day in small portion amounts. And this is what it does look like when you are eating the correct macronutrients, portion control, and 6 times a day. This is kind of what your insulin levels look like when you're on one of our plans. Basically, you have less of a spike and it stays truer longer. You have less of a dip and it just stays pretty stagnant throughout the day, giving your body what it needs, not putting it in a fat storing kind of a state. So it goes along with giving your body what it needs and fueling so often and getting your metabolism going. So I thought all this was really good information when I was starting to get in the routine and understanding why my body was feeling better. So hopefully this is good information for you. There's a few other things I wanted to go over here. Because when we're talking about macronutrients, you guys have probably seen in the Habits of Health, Dr. A's Habits of Health, the 9-inch plate. And that's really what the macronutrient breakdown helps you do. So it's 50% of your plate is vegetables, 25% will be a healthy starch, and the other 25% will be a healthy protein. So depending on where you're at in your plan, because you always fuel for a goal, when you're past the weight loss stage, say in a 3-and-3 plan, this is what one of your fuelings will look like. So basically, just covering up today before we move on to Dan and kind of some information he was going to tell us about the body is eat 6 times a day, fueling yourself based on what your body needs, and keeping your insulin levels in check. This really helps you understand what's going on. And then I was going to warn you with one last thing, as you guys are all becoming health champions and learning more about your body and get into that healthy rhythm. There's one thing you have to watch out for, and that's called being hangry. And so when you do balance out your blood sugar levels, one thing you do have to pay attention to with eating 6 times a day is making sure that you never go past like 4 hours of eating. I think many of you guys, feel free to blink at me or raise your hand if you've ever gone longer than that after you've gotten your blood sugars leveled. That means your blood sugar levels, the insulin levels I was talking about, will dip down, and that's when you will kind of have that hangry moment where you're kind of out of your mind and those cravings start to slip in. So these are all just more knowledge for you on what your body does with all this information. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and Dan's going to give you guys some information, a little bit more about how our bodies work on setting goals and a bunch of different things that factor into our health journeys.
Brad, I love that. And I'm sorry for us nerdy ones. We love to learn about how that, I don't know if that helps anybody else. Maybe blink your eyes or shake your head if that helps you to really learn how those things work in fueling your body correctly. And what I've found is that most of us are one of 2 things before we start our health journey and we work towards creating more optimal health in our life when it comes to eating. I've noticed we're either gorgers or grazers, right? So we either, I don't know, he touched on some of them, but that you're so busy that you don't eat a lot. Maybe you eat 2-3 times a day and you get just gorged because you didn't get to eat much throughout the day. Or you're a grazer, somebody who just eats like that graph that he showed you as far as the not so healthy stuff, but just grazing that throughout the day. And so creating that habit and breaking that kind of routine, it takes time. And so we've got to be patient with ourselves. And what I love about the programs and the nutrition programs that we offer that helps us to create a simple way to really dive into that. And really it's all about consistency. We talked a little bit a while ago about goal setting and how our brains function when we're consistent in our actions, and creating, and habit creation really is what we're doing, is we're creating a habit, which is just repeated action, right? So first of all, be patient with yourself, use your coach and use this community. That's why we're here. But thinking about the way our brains work and the chemicals that are released that we talked about a little bit ago. I don't know. Have you ever felt like you got it all dialed in? You're eating right, you're sleeping right, and you just feel like you're on cloud nine. You're going strong, and then something happens, and maybe you don't feel that same way. And we have some of those ups and downs throughout our journey. But while you feel like that, there's a lot of chemicals that are being released by your brain. We've talked about dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin. And so really, dopamine, we'll go just real quickly. Dopamine's that accomplishment chemical that our brain releases when we actually accomplish a goal. And when we set a goal and we do it, it makes us feel good. It makes us feel happy. Which is why we've talked about setting goals so many times, is because no matter where you are in your health journey, as Brad's dad would say, health is like the laundry. It's never done, right? So no matter where you are in your health journey, we're always going that next step. We're always creating a new goal, a new focus. Maybe not completely new, but a clear focus. And so as we do that, we keep releasing that dopamine. We can keep that high, and that feeling of accomplishment can keep going. And then there's one other thing that we'll touch with, because Brad talked about fueling right. We also release dopamine. Did you know that we release dopamine by the food that we eat? And sometimes that's how we can, get those cravings, and we can, whether it's sweets or salties or whatever it is, to help you feel that immediate rush of those chemicals and feel a masked short-term happiness, right? And so the cool thing is we got to be aware of that, so that we can do the first thing, the prior before the latter, right? So we can actually release that dopamine via goal setting and accomplishing and doing those things. And then, what's really cool about this community, and why you probably, if you're working with a health coach, which you should be if you're in here, but you hear them talk a lot about paying it forward, about talking and sharing this program with your friends and family and inviting them into our community, because oxytocin is our community. It's that feeling of brotherhood, sisterhood, of community, and it's released when we work together as a team. And so really, by doing that, by actually sharing with people what you're doing and inviting them to come alongside you, you are actually creating, you're releasing more oxytocin. You're helping your health journey to be solidified and become a long-term thing that you'll continue to go moving forward. And so as we talked about last time, there's seasons in life, and we have those ups and downs. The cool part is that we can refocus, we can reset those goals and really get clear on them using our coach and depending on our community and our coach, and get those releasings happening again. And lastly, one cool chemical that is a neurotransmitter in our brain, it's called GABA. And I'm not going to say the actual name, but GABA, is our anti-anxiety chemical. So it helps us to be less anxious and calms us. And so we do that by a lot of different things, but through meditation or prayer or whatever form of meditation or yoga that is, deep breathing, having some quiet time to yourself helps to release that chemical as well. And it also, so that if we don't have that GABA, it's been shown that we can have sleep problems. We can have a hard time sleeping because our anxiety levels are up. And there's a lot of insomnia that results when those GABA levels are low. And so these few things that really understanding our mind and how our bodies work helps us to, okay, that's why we're actually setting these habits of healthy sleep and healthy eating and all these things, right? I don't know if, shake your head if that helps you, but before we go on to Susan, I just want to encourage you, stay in community. That's why we're here, and I'm proud of you for being here and learning about this stuff, because we can never learn too much. But as we learn, the question is, what do we do with that, right? So we can learn it to understand it first, and then repeat that. So we just continue that habit, build those stronger neural pathways in our brain that make it a habit, right? So it becomes second nature to us. And so with that, I'll pass the torch, and if there's anything else you wanted to chat on, Brad.
No, it was really good. We're going to turn it over to Susan, but we only hit the tip of the iceberg. Like, there's just so many other things that go on. Like, you talked about rest and what that means, and also how important sleep is, like, to regenerating the body. You can do everything right that we just talked about. If you're not sleeping, you won't actually regenerate your body in night. And also, just by not sleeping, your body produces cortisol. Cortisol is another thing that affects your insulin levels. There's just so many things. And when I nerd out on this information, I learned that I'm just understanding how my body works. And when you understand how your body works, you can start to kind of help it continue to always move forward. There's reasons for these things that help us be successful. So with that being said, I know we're kind of going over a lot of information tonight. Susan's going to take us home with just some last bit of information on all of this that really helps us understand, like, what this all does. Like, it's more than just eating healthy. Like, going back to what I was saying, like, people know what to do. They just need to do it. Well, I didn't know any of this information when I started this plan, so I don't know about you. Susan, did you know any of this information? Oh, I can't hear you. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
There you go. Okay. No, I didn't know, but I love my fellow nerds. Thank you guys. And I learned something new tonight, because sometimes I kind of know it, but it's like every time I solidify and put the building blocks in a little bit better. So, so thank you. And I think what I desire to, like, I spoke back in June on the mind. And so those of you that tuned in, I kind of want to do like an encore performance, if you will, to help bridge the gap between what we know and what we actually do. So I love when Brad's like, oh yeah, your body's telling you to eat like every 2 to 3 hours. How many of you don't need to raise your hand, but like, how come sometimes we eat a big meal and then we still want to eat? Like, or, like, and we start to feel like, I get that all that's true. Like, our bodies have signals and, and the hormones and all these things that are telling it to keep it into a cadence. But sometimes we just feel like we have something totally competing going on in our brain. Like, we know we want to get healthy, but oh my gosh, I think that I am deficient in chocolate because that chocolate brownie is calling my name. Like, I don't know how else to make sense of it, but I feel like I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. Anyone ever felt like completely bananas and crazy like that? I'll call myself out and say I have. So I'm gonna keep you guys for 5 minutes, so hang with me. But and I'm not gonna go into too much depth. But I just want to say there's 2 parts to our brain. So you're actually not crazy. How cool is that? And there are 2 competing parts of our brain. There's the that's like this primitive part of the brain. Maybe you've heard it called the lizard part of the brain. It's part of the limbic system, but it's actually called the amygdala. I love that word. Isn't that kind of fun? I do. And it kind of hangs out in the back of our head. And what's really, really cool about it is it can't move. It actually can't even talk, but it's our survival mechanism. So it is like that primitive part of our brain that is just like, you need to eat to survive. We need to put meat on your bones. And it is so reactionary. So last time I really spoke to emotions. Today I'm going to just speak to thoughts. Like, it is like, and because it can't talk, if it wants a voice, guess what voice it has to use? Yours. So it starts to steal from you, your voice. So you think it's you talking, that like, oh my gosh, I do need to eat that. Like, I'm pretty sure that's happening right now. And the answer to any emotion is usually just eat, okay? It can't be reasoned with. And actually, since it doesn't have any movement, it actually isn't the one that can put food in the mouth or move us to the fridge. Yet it tells our brain, our higher self, our brain to go do it. And then our higher level brain sometimes will act, and we're getting confused of which brain is really talking. So our higher brain, which is you, which is where you set goals, where what Dan was talking about, like where our morals and reasonings all come from. And it's kind of in this front part of our brain, and it's really what you want. It's the real you. But because the lizard brain sounds like us, sometimes we just don't really know. And what's been powerful for me is I've just kind of learned that I have these two kind of thought processes going on that are competing, that I can kind of sit back and kind of separate my thoughts. What's me? What's not me? What do I really want? What am I thinking and telling myself right now? And kind of identify it, call it out. Ah, that's you. That's that little lizard. Like, that's not what I want. What I want to be is really healthy, and start to kind of separate the process. And the more you do that, you build neuro pathways that are different. Like, you're kind of hijacking the whole process, which is so super cool, because it's kind of like how many of you guys have had a successful night? Like you went into that wedding and you planned what you were going to eat. You came home and you woke up the next day and you're like, I did it. Like, I actually did it. I stuck to my plan and I did it. And then it gets easier the next time, and the next time, and the next time. So what I hope to give you guys is hope that you can rewire the process, because sometimes it's really, really muddy when we start, because we're not sure which brain's talking, which way is up. So this is kind of where they live. I'm just going to leave it at that, so we don't get too sciencey here, because we kind of you guys are probably on shutdown. I'm going to leave you with this kind of as a reflection is think about your thoughts as just kind of a river, okay? And it's great to kind of like process them and feel what emotions are and kind of as it goes by. But when we're sitting up on the shoreline and we're in safety, we can watch those processes go by, but be kind of in like that safe zone and not need to be taken down like into the river, okay? So when we get sucked into the river, sometimes like we kind of look at the people up on the shoreline and we're like, how did they get there? Like, how did they make those choices? Like, you feel so in the muck and so in the mud. You almost just don't feel like you have a choice, because you're so sucked down. And so I just want you to know you do. All you have to do is kind of pick yourself up on the shoreline and kind of start to observe your thoughts, and just really think of it as, recognizing that lizard brain, being able to watch and really kind of listen to what's going on in your head. So if you've heard Stop, Challenge, Choose, I'm going to just like throw that in, because that's kind of this space where it kind of fits. And, from that safe place on the shore, you won't get sucked into the river, because you can kind of sit and observe and really just see what's going on. So kind of just pacing that out. And because once you're sucked in, there's momentum there. There's, momentum. And, okay, yeah, and and you kind of started to make it part of you. And the reason I thought of this example is I used to feel just stuck in the river, like I didn't know how to really get out. And so we went into a lot of like the science and the why, but for me, like I have my son right here, and he was the epitome of asking why. Like at 3 or 4, I used to be like, oh my goodness, you ask why about everything. And I think it's a good question to ask, because it gives us clarity and it moves us forward. So with that tonight, that's our brain. So you're not crazy. How cool is that? It's actually normal to have that kind of competing thoughts going on. I just hope you guys continue to just, explore that. There's hope. And we can start to rewire this process. And that's kind of what this is all about. So with that, Brad, I'll pass it back to you.
Susan, that was such a great way to finish this call. Guys, I know we went a little bit long. Most of our health huddles are 15 minutes, but I hope you guys really enjoyed this information. For a little bit more, if you guys haven't dove into the habits of health, almost every single thing we talked about, actually everything we did talk about, some of it we just expanded on tonight, is covered in Dr. Ray's Habits of Health that you guys received on your guys' first order. So, you know what? If anything, guys, tonight, if you guys take away from this, is health is a journey, and you're prescribing to a diet, you're prescribing to a lifestyle change, and there's victories one step at a time. And Susan, I just love what you shared, because I'm going to remember that analogy every time from now on, because I think we all can name like in the last 5 hours when we might have got sucked into the river of our thoughts. And it's just easier once we know, we can start to make habits like Dan was talking about, practicing neural pathways. We start to react naturally to certain things. So hopefully all this information helps. You're not crazy, and you're fighting a structure inside of your body But with habits and practice and setting up these tools, you actually will naturally start to follow in the groove. And I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was if I had to choose just one thing, if I had to just have knowledge on if you could just say, Brad, you can only have one thing, a habit of health that you get to have, that you get to choose, it would be goal setting. Because when you're goal setting, then you always know what you're trying to do and you are going to be less reactive. So Dan, thank you for explaining to us why goals are so important, because it's kind of like the old saying, like, if you don't know where you're going to go, any road will take you there. It's kind of like that with dopamine and how that works. When we have a goal, we're going to be clear and we're going to want to accomplish it. And if we're not, we're going to get dopamine from all the distractions in the world. So guys, hope you guys enjoyed this. Feel free to watch this. And just a reminder, we have 2 more topics on this series. And at the end of it, we'll kind of have some reflection on who learned the most. And we'll actually have some prizes on this. So I hope you guys are having an amazing July in a season where you mostly, get thrown out of your normal routine. Let this be a good lesson that every time we have different seasons, and it's just good to focus and understand more about our body. So with that being said, let's go take on the week. Hopefully you guys are energized and excited. I'm excited to go practice this newfound knowledge that we have. So with that being said, have a great week, everybody. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Susan.
Great stuff.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Susan. Awesome stuff.
How many do we have there?
I don't know.
Yeah, participants at the top.
No, they already can't.
I'm going to go watch the river. Thanks, Susan. Not be sucked into it.
37 people.
No, there's more.
Bye, guys.